Acknowledgement this evening, we have Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm honored to share the land acknowledgement, and I was asked to also share thoughts about reconciliation. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Anishinaabe Nation. The spot where we gather is a traditional land of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. While government land acknowledgements are intended to be respectful and come from a place of good faith, that said, they can risk oversimplifying Indigenous histories. There are more than 5,000 Indigenous individuals living in and around Chatham-Kent, both in Chatham-Kent itself, as well as Walpole Island, Bikejwanong, unceded territory, and the Lenape people of Delaware Nation, Moravian Town. I believe the best way to support Indigenous communities is by taking action. How can we do this? By protecting the environment, by insisting all levels of government respect sovereignty and honor commitments to Indigenous peoples. Invest and visit Indigenous businesses like the Sweet Tree Cafe on Walpole Island, Bikejwanong, a delicious spot serving really tasty food and beverages. Teach the children in your life accurate information about histories and cultures of Indigenous people in our region. Educate ourselves about issues impacting Indigenous communities in Chatham-Kent and beyond by reading great books from our local libraries like Unreconciled. This is my copy, but I'm happy to lend it out if you'd like to read it. By Jessie Wente, an excellent Indigenous Canadian author. Speak up and speak out when you hear out-of-date or hurtful stereotypes. Finally, we all have a duty to respect and honor and be thankful for Indigenous communities in our region that have been stewards of this land for thousands of years. We must continue that stewardship respectfully and inclusively for the next generations. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have a supplementary agenda this evening, and there have been no pecuniary interests declared. This evening, I'd like to welcome as a presentation Mr. Ken Phillips, the General Manager of St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, regarding the SCRCA programs and objectives. Mr. Ken Phillips.
Your Worship, members of Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Really just wanted to take the opportunity to present to Council and put a face to the organization and who we are, and that we are, you know, I deal with a couple CAs, but we are not local here in town, so you often forget that we're here. But anyways, I'd like to just give a quick overview of our organization and a couple things that we did in your municipality in the year 2022, and then some challenges we're going to face in 2023. So we were established in 1961. We're 4,100 square kilometers in size. We're the 9th largest geographically conservation authority in the province. We have 17 member municipalities and 21 members of our board of directors. 20 of those are municipal councillors. One is an agricultural representative appointed by the province of Ontario. In 2022, our budget was $9,596,597. And Chatham-Kent's general levy was $178,963. In terms of conservation lands, probably for conservation authorities, what we're most known for is the sea by the side of the road, which will take you to parks. So we own 21 hectares of property, divided into a number of categories such as day use, management areas, campgrounds. We do actually own properties within Dresden, for example, which are used to take properties out of the flood hazard. So that's another aspect of our land program. In terms of our departments, we have planning and regulations, which we work with the municipality often. Our water resources, which is our flood forecasting, the crew that operates the McHugh spillway. Our biology department, which does a lot of research on various species at risk and water sampling throughout the watershed. Conservation services, which is our stewardship programs, tree planting, forestry, our communications services, financial services, and GIS IT, which are the heart of the organization, which keeps everybody else going, and our high-profile conservation areas as well. In terms of Chatham-Kent, I'll be blunt with you right now. There's an error on the slide for plan reviews. It should say 41, not 241. If we had 241, we'd never do anything else in the watershed. So, so I apologize for that error. It is only supposed to say 41. But in this last year, we secured $50,000 in grants for improvements to the Piers Wetland Conservation Area. Work to commence in 2023. In terms of permits and regulations, we had 201 files, which was a 7% increase from 2021. Plan reviews, as I mentioned, was 41, which is a 10% increase from 2021. 505 Chatham-Kent students participated in our environmental education program. So we do have an outdoor environmental education facility we have in just outside of Petrolia. And so the students will come up there. And we also undertook water quality monitoring at 4 sites in the municipality. So that giant set of letters there stands for the Provincial Surface Water Quality Monitoring Network. So we have 2 sites within Chatham-Kent and 2 benthic sites. Benthics are just bugs. So we take samples, check for the bugs. If you don't have bugs living in your water, you have a problem. So that's just one of the activities that we undertake. In terms of changes for 2023, we will be undergoing a new budgeting process. This is directed by the province of Ontario. So now all of our programs are divided into categories 1, 2, and 3. Category 1 programs strictly revolve around largely natural hazard management. Categories 2 and 3 are other programs that we offer that we have to enter into memorandums of understanding with the municipalities for. So it's like almost like a pick and choose. Yes, you would like to do this program, enter an agreement with the authority. We can help deliver that program for you. We will be negotiating all those. They must be in place by December 31st and enacted by January 1st of 2024. Also, as many of you are aware, there have been significant changes to the Conservation Authorities Act and regulations. As of the passing of Bill 23 at the end of November, certain expectations were placed upon the authority, key being the passing of regulations on December the 28th. So the province was kind enough to send it out during the Christmas holidays, and everybody really didn't have time to react yet, including yourselves. But what this means is that our fees that we charge for permits for planning and permitting activities are frozen, at least for 2023, probably into 2024. We don't expect them to be raised. The St. Clair Authority was very cognizant of the fact that we were trying to take some pressure off our municipal levy, put more onto the user fees. We had come up with a strategy in this last year to increase our fees between 2023 and 2026 by about 150%, to get a 50-50 split between fees and levy. That's obviously not going to happen. The province has said no. Also, effective January 1st, we are no longer permitted to comment on natural heritage. So previously, this was an activity we undertook on behalf of the municipality under the provincial policy statement. Municipalities have to look after wetlands, forests, those types of things. That was a service that we provided as part of our plan review. We are no longer permitted to do that. That will fall upon the municipality to do. And unfortunately, most of our municipalities do not have the capacity to do that. The province hasn't created a transition period. They've made no effort to say how this is going to roll out, but just be aware that as of the beginning of the year, we can no longer comment on that. Also this year, we have to classify all of our conservation lands. So the province has decreed that any property that can be designated or sold off for development will be designated and sold off for development. So most of our conservation areas aren't necessarily suitable for that, but in getting some clarification from the Ministry of Natural Resources, they assured me that any property that can hold at least one house can be sold off for development. So that's obviously going to create some challenges for all CAs as we go forward. But on the happier note, our board did pass a new strategic plan last year to help improve our service delivery, make sure we improve our service delivery to our municipal partners and other local stakeholders. So certainly visit our website, take a look at that, what we're hoping to do. Key component is service delivery, making sure we're doing what our municipalities want us to do, making sure we can meet the expectations of what they want our services to be, and focusing on the local watershed residents as well. So thank you very much for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions from council? Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. No questions. Just wanted to thank you, Ken, for coming. I know you and your team have been working really hard with, especially over the Christmas break, with all the changes and all the challenges that are faced. But just wanted to say thanks for coming and presenting to council, and look forward to working with the board and with the team moving forward.
Any further questions or comments from council? Seeing none. Judy, I think we move to deputations.
Yes, this evening, council, we have 5 deputations. All 5 are with regards to item 19C, the motion of Councillor Sakachi regarding chickens in residential areas. And we will start, 1 second here. Ken Walton, are you here? Please come forward. I remind all deputants that they have 5-minute maximum, and the timer is on the screen. On deck will be Jane Labute, followed by Daniel Vaughn.
Your Honor, councillors, here to talk about chickens. I have this book. It's copyrighted 1916, Poultry Breeding and Management. I don't recommend you study it, but it's really interesting. First of all, I want to thank you for doing what you do. Your job is trying to please most people most of the time, and that cannot be easy. Our rural heritage is almost gone. I believe that heritage is important for us today. And this book, it kind of represents my heritage. My name's Ken Walton. I'm an Aggie. I went to Guelph. I graduated in 1977. I have a 4 years honors Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. My major was animal science, and I have worked on farms. I like farms. And there was a time when most of our citizens interacted with nature. People interacted with their ecology in order to gain economically. Ecological, economic. Those words share the same Greek root word, eco. Eco means home. We're looking after our home. Today, our meat might arrive from Greeley, Colorado, or Brooks, Alberta. At one time, that must have made economic sense. It never made ecological sense. Chatham-Kent's business plan is to have goods locally sourced and locally produced. Good. A few more locally produced eggs have economic and ecological benefits. And what about the biological hazards that chickens present? Well, according to the Centers for Disease Control in America, 1 in 20,000 eggs have salmonella. Does anyone eat raw eggs? And after handling chickens, I am positive most people will wash their hands and change their clothes. Imagine this. Your beautiful dog runs over a grassy area covered in Canada goose droppings, droppings that contain the same bacteria as chickens. The dog comes in the house and jumps on the sofa. What do? Get rid of the dog? Get rid of the sofa? Or just take a nap? It's really up to you. And what about rats that might be attracted to chicken feed? If you put a bag of chicken feed in an old wooden shed with a wooden floor, I'm sure the rats are going to chew their way in there and eat the bag. It just comes down to common sense. There are social aspects to keeping chickens. I wouldn't keep them if my neighbors were opposed. My neighbors are not opposed. In my humble opinion, a few people, young and old, would find chickens more interesting than looking at a screen all day. For mental health, for physical health, get outside and connect with nature. Learn about biology. For me, there's nothing more interesting than the study of life. To conclude, I would like to retain my culture, my farm culture, our agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. Next is Jane LeBute. On deck is Daniel Vaughn.
Mayor and Council, the current responsible animal bylaw excludes all residents who do not own land zoned agricultural from raising chickens. There are many parcels of land in rural areas that are suitable for raising a large flock, and even the smallest city lot could house a few hens. Many rural residents have been successfully raising chickens for years. Not only am I asking that you support the motion this evening, but I am also asking that you safeguard urban and rural families that currently raise chickens by amending the bylaw immediately. It's time to protect rural residents and offer urban residents the opportunity to become a bit more resilient. The vision of CK Plan 2035 includes having policies that make healthy choices easy and encourages us to teach children healthy habits. Chatham-Kent's Food Policy Council is set to begin its new strategic plan development this year. Having backyard chickens aligns with its mission, vision, and values. People have a right to know what is in their food and where and how it was produced, and should have access to healthy, culturally diverse local food. Updating this bylaw would allow urban and rural residents to participate in the local food system, make healthy food choices, and do so in a sustainable and environmentally friendly fashion. Chickens will ease the burden on waste management. A green waste system is being considered currently. Residents will be responsible for sorting their compostable materials. Chickens can be fed fruit and vegetable scraps. Their manure, when mixed with carbon-rich matter, creates excellent compost. Hens lay about 250 eggs per year and do so for 3 to 4 years. Egg production slows in winter and as the hours of daylight lessen. Eggs have a natural barrier called the bloom or cuticle. Commercial cleaning removes this barrier and adds chemicals. Fresh eggs yolks are richer in color, cloudy whites are an indication of freshness, and the taste is superior to store-bought eggs. Hens are generally quiet, but announce when they've laid an egg or are in danger. Eggs are laid during the day. Daily egg collection is recommended and will stymie egg-seeking nocturnal creatures. Some families lack transportation to visit a local farm. People have mobility issues, making a farm visit difficult. Perhaps the only way they can have fresh eggs or experience a flock of chickens is to raise a few themselves or visit a neighbor with hens. Chickens can be emotional support animals and are protected as such by the Human Rights Code. This same bylaw allows for 5 cats per household. Outdoor cats roam everywhere and would be much more of a nuisance than urban chickens kept in a pen. Even the vegan and vegetarian population might be interested in keeping a few spent hens in their gardens. Chickens are omnivores that will eat mice, other small rodents, and bugs. They especially enjoy Japanese beetles. Movable chicken coops or chicken tractors assist with hygiene as they are moved daily, allowing droppings to be dispersed, fertilizing the entire lawn. They can also be placed on top of a garden bed so the birds can clean up plant remains, eat bugs, scratch and turn the soil, and fertilize. Local organic producers Riverbell Market Garden in Dresden and Clear Creek Farms outside Highgate implement rotational grazing practices such as this. Their animals are healthy and disease-free. To have an adequate representation of all community members, effective public engagement must include materials in multiple languages to allow input from our culturally diverse population. A Let's Talk CK survey is only a starting point and limits the number of people who will participate. I spoke with people from other countries who are familiar with raising chickens and would welcome the opportunity. Many people have no desire to raise chickens but believe that this is a practice that should be allowed and is suitable in our area. Additionally, a committee of experienced community members would be helpful in discerning useful regulations. There are already thousands of residents raising chickens across Chatham-Kent. Any disease or illness issues would have been realized long ago. Large-scale commercial operations that house hundreds of animals are more likely to have issues with the spread of disease. Public health just preached at us for 3 years about this. Diseases are spread more readily in confined, crowded spaces. In an urban setting, wild birds would be kept away from chickens by having proper pens. I encourage you to look toward communities with successful chicken bylaws. Places like Kingsville, Sarnia, Guelph, Kitchener, Orillia, Mattawa, Hamilton, and even Brampton allow for chickens with various guidelines. Relevant pieces of existing information can be pulled together to create a bylaw that is unique to Chatham-Kent. We live in rural southwestern Ontario. No one should be surprised that rural things happen here. And I also have the petition that went around. There's about 1,800 signatures, so I have the hard copy, and it's growing, actually. There's more than that.
Just good to go here.
Next speaker is Dan Vaughn, and on deck is Amy Simpson.
Thank you. Councilors and Mayor. My name is Daniel Vaughn. I am a resident in Ward 2, South Kent. I live in the village of Shrewsbury with my fiance and my 3 children. I have grown up in Chatham-Kent and pleased to call it my home. We decided to get backyard chickens in the summer as we thought it would be a good learning experience for our children and would be an enjoyable family experience. I grew up with chickens and they taught me responsibility, where my food comes from, and how to treat and care for animals. They were pets just like our dogs were. We want to pass these values on to our children. There are many other benefits to having backyard chickens. Due to tall grasses and wetlands that we live near in Shrewsbury, we're exposed to ticks and other various bugs. The chickens help to keep the tick population at bay on our property, which is beneficial to our family. Cost of living, and especially the cost of groceries, have risen to the point that it makes it difficult for some families in this municipality to afford to buy healthy foods. Having our own eggs from our chickens allows us to know where our food is coming from, what they are fed, and that they are treated respectfully. We have a child that has significant allergies and skin conditions. As a result of these allergies, it is important for us to know where our food is coming from. We share the eggs with our friends and family, as knowing where their food comes from are important values to them as well. Everyone knows that we live in a very fast-paced, stressful world. People are very busy and mental health concerns are at an all-time high. Our chickens bring our entire family enjoyment. After a long, stressful day at work, nothing brings me more peace than sitting outside and watching our hens scratch and walk around the yard with my family. Chickens are funny birds, and some physicians even recommend them as an emotional support treatment. They're used to help combat isolation and loneliness, and often used in special needs schools, hospitals, and nursing homes. As of April 6, 2022, backyard chickens were allowed in the city of Toronto. Many other urban centers such as Kingston, Newmarket, Niagara Falls, Brampton, Guelph, Edmonton, Montreal, some parts, Surrey, Vancouver, Kitchener, and Victoria allow backyard chickens, to name only a few. These are much more densely populated areas than Shrewsbury and other rural communities within Chatham-Kent. There's much support for backyard chickens in this municipality. We are an agricultural community, and allowing people to have backyard chickens fits within our culture. I respectfully ask that council makes changes to the bylaw that does not allow for backyard chickens, and that I'll be allowed to keep my birds. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Next is Amy Simpson.
Good evening, everyone. When I scan the room, I question whether anyone on council has ever been in a situation where they were not sure where their next meal was coming from, or if the next bill would be paid on time, or if the kids had shoes for school. If you feel financially stable at the moment, I question whether any of you have ever felt the panic, the sadness, or the hopelessness that being seriously short on money can cause. A person can be working a great job, not even worrying about money until it easily changes in a heartbeat. For some people, this is the reality. Some residents of CK perpetually cannot make ends meet. The virus struck and in its wake, we can all agree that it left people in this community suffering real financial loss and hardship, whether from the virus or not. It might feel odd to even think about it, but one never really thinks it will happen until it happens to oneself. Life, however, throws some strange curveballs at times. As elected leaders of the community, I feel that it is your civic duty to aid in the well-being of the constituents by bringing forth solutions and helping to ease the burden for people who may not have the means to live comfortably, and who for some folk, every day is a real struggle. Council, you have been presented an excellent opportunity to help, not hinder. I was quite surprised when I learned that this rural municipality did not allow the keeping of poultry in urban and rural settings. Many people already do this to mitigate the cost of groceries and also for health reasons. I was also shocked that this issue has been brought to the table 6 times already. Just this fact alone should be a clear indication that residents want to be able to keep poultry. I implore council to consider the motion to allow chickens within reason. At this point, it is not a question of whether or not chickens should be allowed. It is a matter of how the municipality can facilitate what is already occurring. I feel that there is no more responsible decision than to explore the options available. Best practice guidelines on hygiene, shelters, feeding, manure disposal, and animal slaughtering and disposal can all be a part of a community education effort for both those in opposition and those in support of this practice. I feel that this is one way to go about healing in what my opinion is a fragmented and divided community. It is impossible to please everyone, however, we can give people the best options available. The truth is, this is how people feed their families. To shut this down is essentially to make criminals out of good citizens who, for personal reasons, would rather not buy their eggs from a grocery store. There needs to be a legal option for these folks. No one should have to feel like they have to hide something under the threat of a monetary fine, which is precisely why they would be raising chickens to start with. There is also the issue of disease. Pathogens are nothing new. People have been raising hens for centuries. In some homes, the chicken was kept inside because they were so valuable and were often stolen. I have read that the keeping of chickens is less odorous than that of feral cats. Backyard flocks don't suffer the same stressors such as crowding, lack of light, and pathogens as commercial flocks. A healthy flock doesn't need the use of antibiotics or hormones. This is the reason that people who perhaps may be able to otherwise afford the price of store-bought eggs choose to raise their own flocks. Regardless, it is dutiful of council to develop the trust and transparency needed to ensure good habits, especially in the case of outbreaks. This transparency is necessary in a working relationship. Do you really want people doing this in secret? Predators, they are already out there. I hear packs of coyotes every night in my rural neighborhood. In the spirit of diversity, can we recognize that some folks simply want to control what goes into their own body, and while others don't concern themselves with trivialities such as this, both ideations are okay? In the spirit of fairness, I suggest that this motion be passed. Some people don't have the luxury of owning rural property. Some do, and their property is not zoned for agricultural use. Could these people be given a more equitable chance in life? In the spirit of inclusivity, I think what CK should be encouraging is the acceptance of other people's way of life and the embracing of new ideas. If one's neighbor wants to keep chickens, it should be allowed as long as it does no harm. The community is basically no different than any other. What is different is that Chatham is fraught with some unique problems that require an acceptance of things that can't be changed and an enthusiasm to change the things that we can. Will you give people some hope and show that you are listening? In the light of recent tax increase, it would be a welcome sign that you are trying to help. I would like to see the equity, inclusivity, and diversity policy put to good use to help people here who are asking a simple thing. The keeping of chickens is a financial and health decision which needs little government control. Chickens are doable, and without ruffling the feathers of anyone, please consider passing this motion. Thank you very much for your time, councillors and Mayor Caniff.
Thank you, Ms. Simpson. The last deputation will be read by the clerk's office. It is from Shaylin Doolittle. Hello, I am aware that council has agreed against allowing chickens in people's backyards, but I know even in Detroit City, we are allowed up to 3 chickens. With the rising cost of food, especially eggs, I would ask that council strongly reconsider their decision. I agree no roosters, but chickens should not be any problem. Thank you for your time. It's the end of the deputations. We'll move now on to the consent agenda. This evening, we have 5 reports that have been pulled from the agenda. Item 15C, Contract Award T22-360, General Contracting Services for the new Public Works Garage, 65 Creek Road, Chatham. It has been pulled by Councillor Finn, Councillor Wright, and Councillor Pinsino. Item 18B, the Blenheim Memorial Arena ice plant replacement has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi. Item 18C, Care Partners Lease Agreement for Mobile Health Care Clinic, 860 Main Street, North Bothwell, has been pulled by Councillor Pinsino. And item 18D, motion of Councillor Finn, speed limit on Park Ave West in Chatham, has been pulled by Councillor Finn and Councillor Jubenville. And the final report pulled this evening is 19C, motion of Councillor Sakachi regarding chickens in residential areas. It has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Finn. Therefore, the following reports will be approved through the consent agenda. Items 14A, B, items 15A, B, D, items 16A, 17A, 18A, 19A, and B.
Could I have a mover and a seconder for the consent agenda? Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Crew. Any questions or comments? See none, we shall call the vote.
Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Bondi, you have to vote. Great. All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. So now we'll move on to the first report that has been pulled. Item 15C, Contract Award T22-360, General Contracting Services of the new Public Works Garage at 65 Creek Road, Chatham.
And could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Finn, seconded by Councillor Brock McGregor. Any questions or comments, Councillor Finn?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Dennis. I know we've approved in the past for the building of this Public Works Garage. Why the big pay increase now for the building of that?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. It's Ryan Brown, Director of Public Works. Dennis is on the line, but I'm happy to take that question. So as identified in the report, there were a number of costs originally that weren't considered. One of the costs being utilities. We did have to reroute and plan for new gas lines and new hydro and water to this building. We thought we'd be able to share them with the existing building, but we couldn't. But the biggest driver of the cost increase compared to the original estimates is the ongoing inflation. When the estimate was originally put together for the 2020 report, those were based on actual numbers. Public Works built a Public Works garage in Ridgetown, replaced it due to a fire, and then we also recently built the Fleet Garage on Siemens Drive. And so that estimate was based on actuals at that time in 2019, and these are the actuals of today. The size of the building has not changed or the scope.
And can you explain the group of the other contingencies, furnishings, and grounds, what that entails?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. So when one thing that was an oversight in that 2019 estimate is that, for example, in this price you're approving today, there's built-in contingencies on the actual garage. So if that money, if there's an error in the drawing or something changes as they start building the building, if those contingencies aren't used, we may not get up to that number. And I believe the contingency is about 10% on a project like this.
So if they're not used and the drawings are correct, that money will go back in?
That's correct. That total price on the screen includes the construction contingency.
Thank you.
Councillor Pinsno, followed by Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just wondered how that got so far off the mark as well. The $450 for the architect, that seemed quite high though for a building. Like that's $500,000 almost. The architect fees on this particular build.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. So regarding the architecture fees, so that was here at Council on a separate report, March 4th, 2021. And But with projects this size, 10% is, you know, kind of, if you would look at any of our other construction costs, 10%, up to 10%, depending on the size of the project, would be typical. So I don't believe those costs are out of line.
Okay, we're gonna pull the funds from the, AMP bridges, but they said it's not gonna have any, impact on future bridge projects. If you're pulling 2.6 million, I don't understand how that's not gonna have an effect later on a bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. So happy to take, Gord's going to take that one.
I can if you want. Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. This came, this tender just came in way too late in the 2023 budget process. So we couldn't get it into the budget because it was just received. So where it's actually being funded from is the 2024 capital budget. So if you remember last week, we had about a $7.5 million capital budget. And what we're going to have to do is prioritize out of the 2024 capital budget, the funding to finish this off and push other projects off to repay the bridge reserve. The bridge reserve, the reason why the bridge reserve was picked is because it has the largest cash balance in it right now. Engineering is working away at bridges, probably 20 different projects across the municipality, but often those are 2-year jobs, and we know that there'll be a cash balance in there at 2023 year end. So we're basically doing borrowing for it for 1 year only and paying it back in next year's capital budget.
Okay, don't delay any of our bridges.
No, not delaying
the
bridges with no impacts.
With the property already sold, we have no option but to do this, do we?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. That's correct. So currently, Chatham Roads is working out of outside, and some space we have kind of makeshifted at the yard after the building was sold in 2020.
I got it. All right, thank you.
Councilor Wright?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Back on August the 10th, 2020, we voted for $2.75 million. Did we not have the money then to do this?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor, for the question. So the original report to council identified that the existing public works garage that we had was sold for $750,000, and there was an estimated net investment of $2.75 million for a total estimated value of $3.5 million for the construction. And in that report, it identified some options for potential, but it was that difference in the sales price to what the actual construction price would always have to be funded out of the capital plan.
Now we're up to 6.1 million. Why wasn't this done back when we voted for it? Because it was supposed to have been done then, because the guys were working outside then. They were working on their equipment outside and storing stuff. And we put it, and that was the issue at the time, that how everything was outside and it was supposed to get under a roof.
Thank you for the question. So it's been a long road to get here, and I acknowledge it. It's been 2 years, and if there's any public works employees listening, they'll tell you it has been a long 2 years for them. We encountered a couple significant delays. One, right at the cusp of the pandemic, and that was a shift in priorities, trying to overcome all the challenges that came with that in early 2020. But also, with regards to the utilities I was talking about, because all the utilities had to be split off the Park Ave Business Center, the surveys had to done, the property had to be severed into different lots to build this building, and the approvals, and everything takes a lot of time. And then add on that design and the geotechnical work that had to be done on the site, and 2 years went by pretty quickly. So this is the first we've had it here tonight to bring before you.
We got through the work garage through the pandemic, and everything got done, and staff done good doing it. They done a nice building. Like, I just can't understand why this has taken so long, and now it's over doubled in price. It just, you know, I got 2 calls on this today, and they want to know how we could go that far out on our price from the original. So
Yeah, thank you for the question. As explained before, the original square footage price was based on 2 actuals that we had built in the previous year. And this is not something we could have predicted, that the actuals per square foot would double in 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions or comments from council? See none, we'll call the vote.
Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
All votes are in, motion passes 17-0. Moving on to 18B, Blenheim Memorial Arena Ice Plant Replacement.
And I'll look for a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Sakachi, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bondi. I guess I just wanted to touch base here with Rob Pollock, and I keep my comments relatively short. But Rob, there is a fair bit of confusion in the community right now about the report. Can you just clarify the fact that this is an information report only, and that there's no intimate work that's presently required at the facility at this time?
So
Ian, sorry, I do apologize. As whoever's going to answer, if it's.
thank you, through the acting mayor to the councillor. The purposes of this report really is to identify some of the issues that we're facing at this arena and show that we've been doing the planning for future improvements. So at the present time, there's no improvements identified. We'll be looking at various funding streams to potentially fund some of those improvements in the future, and we'll be coming back to council at that time.
Thank you. And the main reason why I wanted to pull this report was not just about clarifying that, but I think it's important to acknowledge your team as well as the team that was in place before you, because in the report it identifies that the floor is actually 10 years past its life cycle, and I think that the amount of upkeep and the way that the staff is working shows that we're doing our best to maintain what we have. So last question for you is that, how much notice is the community going to be given when this work has to proceed? Obviously, we have a junior team that operates out of there in South Kent. The Blenheim Arena is one of the most busiest arenas in Chatham-Kent. So how would that look in regards to when the notice came up? Is this like a 6-month? I did some reading online. It's like 6 months for floor replacement. Is that correct?
Thank you through the acting mayor. I'm going to ask Mr. Clark actually to provide some input there.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Ian Clark, Manager, Parks, Recreation, and Cemeteries. Councilor Sakachi, it'll really depend on when we secure the funding, but I don't imagine this would come together that quickly. Once we've identified the funding source, we'll bring it back to council with a recommendation where we'll fund our share, and then we'll go through the tender process. So I imagine we'd probably be about a year in the planning phase where we can begin contacting those groups and making alternative arrangements.
Thank you, and I just wanted to thank staff again for being proactive and ensuring that we have information in front of us prior to the decision. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I just want to clarify here, the entire purpose of this being brought up is actually because of a law, right? Like, that can no longer use the type of cooling agent that they're using, right? So this has to be done. Like, this isn't something that's like, oh, we want to redo the floors. This is something like by law has to be done within a certain amount of time, correct?
Thank you through the acting mayor to councillor. The first recommendation really speaks to what you're identifying there, that we need to be looking at a replacement with a natural refrigerant system versus what we're currently using. So that is really one of the intents here, is to identify how we're going to proceed in the future with our replacement.
Any other further questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
All votes are in, motion passes 17-0. 18C, Care Partners Lease Agreement for Mobile Health Care Clinic, 860 Main Street North, Bothwell, sorry.
And I'll need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Pinsino?
Happy to move that.
And Councillor Wright, seconds, thank you.
Happy to second that.
Sorry, Councillor Pinsino.
Thanks. I think this is good for Bothwell. It's, they've been underserviced for a lot of years. And we just recently in Thamesville learned that our doctor is retiring, which is not good. We're still hoping that the recruitment program finds us a doctor, but this may be something that we can look at in the towards the end of the year possibly, or early next year, if we can't find a doctor. Anyway, I think this is a positive for the area, and it's gonna help a lot of folks, a lot of seniors in that town, and I just think it's great.
Great, thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I think that this is a really great program. I think it's a great alternative. But I don't think that it can be a replacement as far as not getting a physician or a permanent clinic in place. But I think it's something really great. It's like a walk-in clinic that anyone can use. They also have specialties with migrant workers or people that are not from here, which I think it's a really great option for them to get some really good quality healthcare rather than ending up in a more acute situation where they end up in the emergency room. It can be handled through a walk-in clinic. So anytime that I think we can prevent people getting really, really sick is a really great option. I'd love to see if anyone can answer if there's an opportunity to get these in other areas, if this company is looking to do this in other areas of Chatham-Kent, and what that would look like.
Any takers, Rob?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I've been in conversation with Stuart McFadden through Economic Development, who was the main contact for securing this, the care partners for Bothwell. So we have looked at this, and they are willing to have conversations about where we see some needs throughout Chatham-Kent, and we will go forward looking at that. I want to remind kind of council and anybody listening that we have 20,000 unattached residents in our community who are not connected to primary care. So I also want to kind of say that I agree with Councillor Anderson. This is not meant to replace a primary care practitioner or a family doctor. What it does do is provide some really great service to community members and it helps keep people out of emergency rooms. So very positive, and we will continue to have those conversations as we kind of look at other areas. And I just found out today about the Thamesville family practitioner who is retiring. So we're going to see more and more of that as our medical professionals age and have put in a lot of work and want to retire. So it's a great option for that.
Any further questions or comments from council? See none, we can call the vote.
Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
Thank you. All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 18D, motion of Councillor Finn, speed limit on Park Ave West, Chatham.
And a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Finn. And seconded by Councillor Jubenville. Councillor Finn.
I have nothing more to say. It basically speaks for itself, but I believe Councillor Jubenville has a friendly amendment.
Councillor Jubenville.
Yep, I would like to add the area of Howard Road between Park Ave West and Indian Creek to also be looked at in the report for 50 kilometers.
Any other questions or comments from Councillor Brock-McGregor?
Thank you. Just wondering, do we have a typical process for residents to bring forward speed limit concerns, and what's our practice in reviewing those speed limits when we're seeing increased development? So is that an ongoing process through administration, or is something that always needs to be initiated by community members?
Thank you, through the acting mayor to the councillor. I believe we're coming forward as staff with a traffic calming policy shortly. And my hope and my goal is through there to create a more formal process where staff proactively reviews speed limits within urban areas and areas that we've have concerns identified, so that we don't have to have these one-off motions brought forward.
Thank you. And, no problem in seeing a report come back on it, but I do know that we have a lot of areas in Chatham-Kent that are arbitrarily changed over the years that have resulted in lots of issues and unwanted rerouting of traffic that's unintended. So it's just, sometimes we have to be cautious when we look at these things. And I'm glad that there's a policy coming forward so we can do that in the right way.
Thank you. And for some clarity on locations, Judy?
Thank you. Councillor Jubenville, is it correct on the screen now? Howard Road and Park Ave West? Can you repeat again? We just
Yeah,
didn't have it.
Howard Road between Park Ave West and Indian Creek.
Okay. Between Park Ave West and Indian Creek.
Right.
Great, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, any further questions or comments from council? Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you. To Mr. Edward there. So just had one question. Yeah, I keep
Edward.
always forgetting that your last name because I'm just getting new to this. Just the only clarification I have is that when this is passed, does it just fall into queue? Because I know that talking to Mark Seppi in the past with issues we've had in before, that you guys look at these in line with, as reports in certain areas as they come. So is this just going to go into the queue and basically follow up with all the ones that are already there? Is that kind of how it's going to work?
Thank you. Through the acting mayor, that would be the process we do. If we have some already that we're reviewing, there's a process for this. We have to go out and measure the speeds, look at the traffic. So it'll be in line with the other requests that we have. So this will be at the end of the queue at this point.
Great, thank you, Mr. Edward. Any further questions or comments from council? Seeing none, and we'll call the vote.
Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
Thank you. All votes are in, motion passes 17-0. Final report, item 19C, motion of Councillor Sakachi regarding chickens in residential areas.
And this is one we're waiting for. So a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Sakachi and seconded by Councillor Allen. Councillor Sakachi.
Madam Clerk, would you like me to read this through again? Is that?
Yes, please.
Whereas the municipality's responsible animal ownership bylaw permits chicken on premises zoned agriculture under the municipality's zoning bylaw permitting such use, and whereas there is interest from the public requesting that chickens be permitted on urban and rural residential areas, be it resolved that administration conduct a CK Let's Talk survey to obtain feedback and comments on permitting backyard chickens in urban residential areas and rural residential areas. And two, an information report with the results of the survey and information on what surrounding municipalities are doing regarding chickens in urban areas be reported back to council by May of 2023. Further, that the report include public consultation with public health for additional feedback and recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Sakachi. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor Bondi. So just to try to save a bunch of conversation, so I recognize that there's a lot of individuals on either side of this topic, and I know that this has come to council once on my last term of council, but what I think that we haven't did in the past was kind of give the forum to the community to allow their consultation besides deputations, as well as consult with our staff members, and as well as consult with public health. I know that there's been some conversation with some council members about immediate amendments to the bylaw. I just know that we've just went through a challenging time from the budget standpoint. These bylaws do cost us money. There could be potential costs associated with this responsible animal ownership. So I think in due diligence to make a data-driven decision, I just think that we should allow the process to take place, go to the community, hear everybody's feedback, hear what our staff have to say, hear what everybody else is doing, touch base with April's team in public health, and make a data-driven decision on what is best for the municipality of Chatham-Kent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor, Acting Mayor Bondi, sorry. I would just ask that Paul be consulted in this because they are the animal bylaw people and I believe they would be the ones that would have to conduct any kind of grievances. Am I right with that?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Councilor McGrail, correct, we'd definitely include PAWR in the process.
Perfect, that's my question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Is there a cost associated with doing, these reports and study, or is this just something that wouldn't cost anything? They give us a bunch of information and we base the decision. And the reason I'm asking is because I feel like any conversations that I've had, whether it's with people in the community or people around this horseshoe, I don't think that any study is going to sway anybody's decision one way or another. So is there a cost associated with gathering all this information?
There's no cost with gathering the information. It's when council makes a decision on whether there's a bylaw or not, then there might be costs associated with adding animal control, that sort of thing.
Councillor Pinsno?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. The only thing if you're going out to the public with this, and I think we should get some feedback from the community. I've honestly had a lot of people through my door saying they want this, but can't be any roosters, guaranteed. And that has to be right in the wording of backyard chickens, because nobody wants a rooster, and you might as well not even do the report or waste your time with it. But anyway, I would say no roosters, and I think we need to go through and just see what the public says. Thank you.
Councillor Finn?
Thank you. Through you. Could also the bylaw officers also be consulted as well as to what their increased costs would be? Would they be included as well? Because they would also, after hours, and be affected by property standards, I would presume.
Mr. Acting Mayor, Councillor Finn, I would say yes, we will as well include them in the process, because if council was to pass a bylaw, it would depend on who would be responsible for enforcement, and it very well could be building services from a chicken coop perspective, but yes. Sure.
And I know we can't do anything about the feral cats, but it was brought to my attention, if somebody has a dog, they have to pay for a licensing every year to keep that dog. Could that also be looked at with regards to these chickens, and that could offset some of the costs that are going to be incurred by the taxpayers that don't have the chickens?
Councillor Finn, are you asking if we could license cats?
No, I said it's with regards to the chickens. I know there is no bylaw to license the cats. You're limited to the number you can have. But I've had people calling me up stating why should they have to pay for a dog license if their dog doesn't leave the property or it doesn't create any issues, that because of the costs with regards to paws and other enforcement. I explained that part to them. They suggested could that be looked at with regards to this, and that way it's on file that they've only got 3 chickens. There's a document there then.
Councillor Finn, Judy may have something.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Yeah, we can definitely look in that. We have, in the dogs, we have kennel type licenses. So in this whole review and the report coming back, we can look if other municipalities do that type of charge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wright?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. One thing I think we should really push on is how many, whether it's going to be 3 or 5 hens, and maybe we should change our wording up there from chickens to hens, then we know there won't be roosters involved.
Yeah. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Sakachi?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bondi. Just the last comment is that I think it's important for everybody to realize that this potential motion, and Ms. Havens, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that if this was, let's say, we didn't go through the conversation portion, there's going to be a fee associated with the municipality doing this. And that was my, like, I'm not talking about the report, but if we all of a sudden change the bylaw, it's not just as simple as saying tomorrow backyard chickens are allowed. There's many different aspects we have to look at. So that is the reasoning why. It's not that I want to add additional, government input into this. It's the fact that I think that, in all fairness to staff, this is a big undertaking if we were just to change the bylaw tomorrow with our contractors, with our licensing staff. It's a little bit more complex than we initially, than you would think on the first overview, correct?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Councillor Sakachi, I totally agree with you. Yes, it does take a lot of investigating to figure out exactly what we would regulate, and always that comes with extra charges. So it's always best to probably do that investigating first, so we know exactly, the costs associated with it and what regulations we'll be implementing.
Thank you. Our licensing team always does a great job, and I'm sure that if there's something in the report that's lacking, that we can always send that back. I'm just looking forward to future consultation and hearing what the other councillors have, the public have, as well as staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sakachi. Mr. Dubin?
Yeah, I just wanted to supplemental to that. Obviously, as part of the direction, we will be looking at what other municipalities do in terms of the bylaw. But given that we don't have the experience, I think the other thing we can do is look at what other municipalities have experienced in terms of costs associated with enforcement. So then, rather than just speculating, because at this point we would be speculating, we'd have some data to look at in terms of what other municipalities saw once they implemented this sort of change. If council were to go in that direction, then you'll have a better idea of what your enforcement cost might be. So that would address a couple of questions around the table.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council? And seeing none, we will call the vote.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. Moving on to notices of motion, Acting Mr. Mayor, we have 4.
Yes. We'll start with Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I, Ryan Doyle, put forth the following motion to be voted on during our March 6th council meeting. Whereas Chatham-Kent has faced multiple double-digit increases to insurance premiums over the past years, and whereas the costs on insurance are having a significant impact on municipal budgets in Chatham-Kent and around the province, now therefore, council direct administration to engage with other municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and any other relevant municipal associations to determine what tools may be available to reduce insurance costs, including cooperative purchasing of insurance, creation of a municipal reciprocal insurance provider, or legislative changes to address insurance costs of municipalities. And administration report back to council regarding the result of this engagement and any recommended council resolutions to support improvements to municipal insurance in Ontario. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. I, Councillor Trevor Thompson, hereby give notice that I will bring the following motion for discussion and voting at the March 6th council meeting. Whereas Chatham-Kent recognizes the importance of environmental conservation and sustainability, and whereas pollinators, including bees, butterflies, and specifically the monarch butterfly, are responsible for pollinating fruits and vegetables, and whereas the monarch butterfly, which was officially designated as endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, is a population in decline, and whereas in Canada, monarchs are most abundant in southern Ontario, where milkwood plants and breeding habitat are widespread, and whereas loss of habitat, climate change, and increased use of herbicide have contributed to the monarch's decline, therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Chatham-Kent prepare a report for council's considerations on the actions that can be taken by the municipality and how it plans to encourage residents and its partners to protect the monarch butterfly and its habitats.
Thank you. Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bondi. I, Councillor Marjorie Crew, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion on March 6, 2023 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas Park Ave East from Creek Sass Road to Park Lane experiences significant amount of vehicular traffic as well as pedestrian traffic generated primarily by CK Brain Injury Association, several businesses, and residential dwellings. And whereas the transit shelter servicing these businesses is on the north side of Park Ave East and east of the CSX railroad tracks with no continuous sidewalks. And whereas citizens who use the transit shelter with or without mobility challenges have additional challenges attempting to cross the 4 lanes of traffic either to or from the shelter, be it resolved that administration perform a study, investigate options, and report back to council with options for consideration of a pedestrian-activated crosswalk crossing Park Ave East adjacent to the transit shelter. This report to include outcomes of the study, estimated costs, and funding source, and this report to return to council by July 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sakachi?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bondi. I, Councilor Anthony Sakachi, hereby provide notice I'll be bringing the following item for voting and discussion on the March 6th meeting of council. Whereas the municipality currently has 10 arenas and where the average age of the facilities exceeds 50 years, and whereas the aging ice rinks pose a significant financial challenge with the newest recreational arena exceeding 30 years of age, and whereas council continues to receive reports and requests for large funding for continued operation, and where it's extremely important for council to make detailed data and financial-driven decisions with up-to-date information, and whereas the business case for each arena and usage may vary, be it resolved that administration develop a report through the asset management plan that 1, provide council with updated usage of the individual arenas, 2, a detailed list and estimation of potential large-scale items and repairs that may be coming to estimated life cycle of high-valued items such as compressors, floors, etc. 3, detailed plans and recommendations for the reallocation of teams and deferred allocation of ice time and usage if the arenas are temporarily decommissioned for remediation. 4, a roadmap of how administration is preparing for the continuing aging of the facilities and potential for large items failing. 5, a list of potential items that are past their life cycle and have a higher potential to fail and the current costs associated with those large failures. 6, any potential or future grants that may be surfacing regarding funding or grants that are associated with aging infrastructure and environmental incentives for reducing emissions and improving the environmental footprint. 7, estimated costs and recommendations of large-scale repairs or life cycle costs that administration feel are imminent. 8, the Director of Recreation work directly with the CFO and his team and develop a threshold and business case for future sustainability of aging arenas based on the needs and funds available.
Whew. All right, now we will move to closed session reports. Councilor Crew.
Thank you. Testing my reading skills. So, closed session report for Thursday, January 26th. Council directed administration on litigation affecting the municipality with regard to property damage collections lawsuit. The following item was postponed until February 1st, 2023. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege and position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried out by the municipality with regard to the battery energy storage system project, Section 239(2) F and K of the Municipal Act. Wednesday, February 1st, Council directed administration on advice that is solicitor-client privilege and a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried out on by the municipality with regard to battery energy storage system project, Section 239(2) F and K of the Municipal Act. And today, February 6th, Council directed administration on advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege and a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by the municipality regarding development charges appeals, Section 239(2) F and K of the Municipal Act. The following item was postponed to a future meeting. Educating or training members regarding cyber security training, Section 239(3)(1) of the Municipal Act 2001. So move.
Thank you, and we will move to,
No, we need a seconder, and then we need to vote.
Well, Councillor Finn, you'll be the seconder, and then we'll call the vote.
Sorry, Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
All votes are in and motion passes 17-0.
And now we move on to the approval of communication items. And I'll need a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Pinson, seconded by Councillor Crew. No questions or comments from council, and we'll call the vote.
Sorry, that's just.
Oh, show of hands. And that passes, yes, thank you very much. Non-agenda business. All right, whoa, okay, let's see. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I just wanted to give some credit where credit is due. We were at a hockey tournament this weekend, took place in Ridgetown and Dresden, and I had the opportunity to meet Brad Tuckwell, who is the manager of the Dresden Arena. It is a brilliant facility. It is very well kept. His employee has a vacuum that he wears as a backpack, and he's in the stands. He was washing the windows. It was a wonderful arena and facility to attend, so I just wanted to give credit to Brad and his team for keeping an outstanding facility.
Thank you, Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bondi. I would like to recognize and acknowledge that February is Black History Month. There's a lot of activities that are going on in our community. The residents can visit Living CK or visit the Municipal Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Justice website to find out what's going on in our community and how you can participate. I'd also like to draw your attention to the Chatham-Kent Police website under Black History. You will find some really cool articles that are being done by the group there. Sergeant Hodder and her cohorts are putting that together, but there's some very interesting articles, one being Mr. Olby, who recently passed, and recognizing him. There is a former police officer, Mr. Harding, who was, that will be focused on Wednesday. So every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, those will be coming up, and share them on your Facebook and social media. It's a good way to share stories of our history and to participate any way you can. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you everyone for coming to the flag raising on the 1st, the largest turnout in ages for a flag raising that I've been to. So thank you everyone who was out there, and continue on with sharing the stories.
Thank you, Councillor Crew. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor. Just to piggyback on what Councillor Crew was mentioning there, it is Black History Month, and coming up on February 9th, the Buxton National Historical Site Museum, along with Red Barn, is hosting their Jeopardy! And they asked 3 people to take part: Shauna Reagan, JP Huggins, and myself. Tickets are still available. That's coming up on the 9th. If you want to head on out to Red Barn, you can check out redbarnbrewing.com to pick up your tickets. It's interactive as well, so there's going to be a whole lot of answers that I don't have, but I plan on being quick on that buzzer, so you'll be able to shout out and help me out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Finn?
Thank you. Just wanted to recognize and congratulate 2 youths who chose a sport that not many choose. They've dedicated many long hours every week, and their dedication and determination paid off this weekend. As members of the KO Boxing Club, who participated in the Brampton Cup. Landon Wilmot won a gold medal for the 2nd year in the 46-kilogram elite open class, and is now moving on to a possible match in Toledo, Ohio. And Matea Marchand, a young girl who I'm honored to know as well, her 1st year of boxing, won a gold in the 46-kilogram novice division, and now focuses on a match in Nova Scotia. So congratulations to both of them.
Thank you. Councillor Story.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Also, to add on all the great things happening this month, the Winter Art Crawl is this Friday, February 10th. The weather is not supposed to be -20, so it's going to be a little more reasonable, so we can be outside. Starts at 6 p.m. at Art Space, finishes up at the Thames Art Gallery at the Cultural Center with stops at the Art and Heirloom Shop, Turns and Tales, the Co., William Street Cafe, and CK Museum. Lots of great treats and beverages. The event is free, and all attendees will be given an art crawl passport. And those who have that stamped at every location will be eligible for a $100 prize at 8:30 p.m. at the Thames Art Gallery. Also this weekend, Theatre Kent's production of Remember Maggie, which will be benefiting partially the Alzheimer's Society of Chatham. Production for your tickets, or you can call the box office at 519-354-8338. Thank you.
And thank you, Councilor Scacchi.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bondi. I just wanted to give the chief an opportunity to speak very briefly. A lot of conversation right now with the cold temperatures about the ice safety, and I know that you guys recently did some training on the ice, and I just wanted to give you just a quick platform just to speak on the fact how we don't need your crew out in the ice right now trying to save somebody. So if you just had a brief moment to enlighten everybody on the dangers, and especially with these warm temperatures.
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. You are correct. We've been engaged in.
Is your microphone on?
Yes.
There's no light.
Lights on. I've got some lights on, but not others.
Sorry, Bruce, can you just turn yours towards him, just so the people online can hear?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Can you hear me now, ma'am? Excellent. You are correct. We've been engaged in ice water rescue training for the past 7 days. You'll have seen the crews out there on the ice. Sea Platoon were out on the river today. However, speaking with the crew at Irio, who pretty much are the ones who do most of our ice rescue, the chief advises me that the ice is unsafe. It has turned to honeycomb, and we'd all appreciate it if you would stay off, is the best way of putting it. For now, the ice is unsafe, and we'd rather not be donning our suits in an emergency rather than just a training scenario. So thank you for the question.
Oh, yeah, sure. Councillor Anderson?
Sorry, Chief, just to clarify, is every fire station has ice training and the ability to rescue, like say Tilbury or Wheatley or Mitchell's Bay?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Acting Mayor, some of our stations have got more than others, is the best way of putting it. All our stations have immersion suits. They can all provide rescue from the shore, but some of our stations, such as Irio, Dresden, Chatham, Wallaceburg, because of the increased risk, they have a little more equipment, but all of our stations can perform some form of rescue for people on the ice, even if it's just waiting for another crew to come and assist them, yes.
Thank you. And back to Councillor Crew.
Thank you. Just briefly, I'd just like to acknowledge my person sitting here, Councillor McGregor. She's going to Queen's Park on the 21st to the Ontario Chronic Disease Prevention Alliance so that she can bring awareness and help raise awareness in our community as the chair of the Board of Health with Alpha. So, yeah, I just want to acknowledge her and the good work that she's doing. So get us on the map with Queen's Park.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Crew. Now we will move to the reading of the bylaws. First and second reading. I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Pinsno, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor, show of hands. That passes unanimously. Third and final reading. Councillor Solomon. Oh, right. Councillor McGrail, seconded by Councillor McGregor, and I couldn't refuse. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Thank you. Yeah, good thing it's a short night, right? And that's adjournment. Who will take the honor of moving that? Councillor Finn, seconded by Councillor Ryan Doyle. And all of those in favor? Thank you very much. 7:21, it's a wrap. You're welcome. Thank you.